Good evening. Today I'm just on time with the lecture on step number 6 of the forensic investigation process. I will be discussing interviewing of witnesses. Interviewing of witnesses follows immediately after documentary evidence correction, analysis, and examination. You would agree with me that documents cannot give us the complete story of what happened and why it happened. For example, when you look at a forged check, you will see a forged signature and most probably a fake payee. But you will note that the document will not give you the answers as to why it was forged. Why did the person who forged the document do it? What was the motive behind the forgery? What was the intent? Such questions and many others that come in form of gaps in information corrected from the documentary evidence correction will be answered in step number 6, interviewing of witnesses. Step number 7, interviewing of suspects. And step number 8, forensic external documents circularization. Sorry, for number 8, step number 8 is forensic external confirmations. I've just mentioned briefly why interviewing is important. Interviewing witnesses will assist us complete the documentary evidence already corrected. Where there are gaps, the witnesses will give us the information. Where documents are missing, the witnesses will give us the information. The witnesses will even be able to give us information, more information about the suspects. They will reveal more suspects, which we did not get from the at the preliminary step, and they will provide more information on the crime incident. Number 4, they will provide evidence or give information that might lead to discovery of more evidence. Number 5, they will enable us, all the investigators, to assess whether they are witnesses for sure or suspects. We mentioned that the preliminary stage that the rough list we had of witnesses was just a temporary list. It was not a perfect list, because some of the witnesses during the interviewing of witnesses will be moved from the list of witnesses to the list of suspects. So it is during the interviewing of witnesses that the investigators get, this is the time when they get the opportunity to assess and determine whether or not the witnesses they have are witnesses for sure or they are just the suspects, so that they be moved to the suspects list. Number 7, to confirm, the phone was on and it has come in to interfere. I'm very sorry for that. Number 6, to confirm the evidence already gathered and analyzed so far. The witnesses will come in handy to confirm the evidence that has been gathered and analyzed to date. Number 7, to assist the investigators to fill the gaps in the evidence collected from documents. This is what I've already said, that the interviewing process will assist us to complete the story about the incident. At this stage, you would ask yourself, who is a witness? Who is a witness? A witness in the context of forensic investigation is a person or a staff or a supplier or customer who first reported the wrongdoing. This is the key witness. This is the witness, because this is the person who first got the information and therefore will be interviewed to give us more. A person holding a document of evidence of the alleged wrongdoing. If there is a person who has a document of evidence, then this person will be interviewed to tell us how he got the document and why he believes that that document is a forgery or it is out of the work of fraud or corruption. Number 2, a person who saw the suspect perpetrate the wrongdoing. This is the eyewitness, the person who can tell us that I saw him. For example, if it is a forging check, I saw him write the check. I saw him draw the check. I saw him draw the cash. This is the person who saw the action, the wrongful action being performed by the perpetrator. You will note that in fraud and corruption cases and even money laundering, eyewitnesses are very, very, very rare. Eyewitnesses are very rare because this type of crimes are clandestine in nature. They are done in secret. They are done with a lot of concealment, and therefore, to get an eyewitness for crimes like corruption, fraud, and money laundering is not easy. But sometimes you get like corruption, you can see and witness with your bare eyes a person receiving or giving bribery, a bribe, and then you be when you are you be taken as a witness to testify, to be interviewed, to give the information, testimonial evidence of what you saw. Number 4, a person that is holding information on the incident. This is a witness. He will be interviewed as a witness to give us more information about the incident. Number 5, A person who refused to play the role of conspirator, if he was requested to team up with the perpetrators, and then he refused after being given all the information about what they were to do, then that person can be interviewed as a witness, and they will be able to give all the information that he or she knows. Number 6, a victim of the wrongdoing. Sometimes we forget that the victim is a witness, the victim of the crime, whatever crime, is a witness because he saw it being perpetrated on him or around him. So he can be interviewed as a witness and can even stand in a court of law to explain what happened. That is the definition of who is a witness. Who is a witness in the context of forensic investigation process. What is interviewing? What is interviewing? Interviewing can be defined as planned, structured, and a controlled conversation that is aimed at gathering useful information in support of the investigation. It is a conversation, but not a free and careless conversation. It is a conversation that is well planned, structured, and controlled so that it produces the information required. Number 2, in other words, interviewing is an investigative process through which the investigator gathers testimonial evidence in the form of witness statements. It is during interviewing or at the end of it that the witnesses can be asked to put down what they know, so that will be taken as testimonial evidence that can be taken to court, and the witnesses who gave the statements can be able to go there and testify. Number 3, it is also a process of assessing the witness to see whether or not he or she is a credible witness or just a suspect or a conspirator. That is the definition of interviewing. Planning the interview. When we are doing the introduction to forensic investigation, we first defined what is forensic investigation. And we defined forensic investigation as a systematic inquiry into what might have gone wrong or what is currently going on. If the investigation has to be systematic, then everything must be done according to plan. If we are going to interview, there must be a plan. We must plan about the interview. We cannot just get into an interview and start asking questions anyhow. There must be a plan. There must be a plan which will involve the timing of the interview. What is the time? What is the agreed time? We have to plan for the agreed time with the person to be interviewed. That has to be planned for and agreed between the interviewee and the interviewer. Number two, during the planning process or stage, we are supposed to identify the interview location or venue. Identify and organize it well, because the chairs must be available equal to the number of the participants in the interview, and also a desk, at least one, for the interviewer and his co-interviewer for taking notes. This has to be planned well in advance of the interview, if the interview is to succeed. Number two, plan for the co-investigator to be available to observe the body language of the witness and take notes as you, the lead investigator, asks questions and engages the interviewee in a conversation. It is very, very important that you be two investigators in the room, so that as one engages the interviewee in a conversation, question and answer session, the other person, the other investigator, is observing the body language, observing the non-verbal communication from the interviewee and taking notes, so that the principal lead investigator is not distracted by note taking. Number four, preparing a rough list of questions to be asked. You cannot just go to the interview room. You must plan. You must be having a plan on how to attack the interview. You must be having the questions in mind, because you already have the gaps in information gathered from the documentary evidence. So you must put down questions which you will start with, and then refine your list as the interview progresses. Because as the interviewee talks, you will find that there will be more questions coming up, so that you put them to him or her again to explain. Starting an interview. How do you start the interview? Start by rapport building. Rapport building is a very critical stage in the interviewing process. Whether you are interviewing witnesses or suspects, rapport building is a very critical stage. And this is where the investigator tries as much as possible to impress the interviewee, to make the interview relax so much so that he is able to view the interviewer as a friend who is there for a good purpose. for both the interviewee and the interviewer. This is where you have to set the tone of the interview. This is where you have to indicate to the interviewee that you are harmless. You are just a friend who is carrying out an assignment, an important assignment, of finding out what happened and then give a recommendation. Do the introductions and start by introducing yourself, who you are, why you are there in the interview room, and why you are there to interview the witness. Also let him or her introduce himself and herself well, in a relaxed atmosphere, in a relaxed manner. Ask a question that will assist both you and the interviewee to find common areas of interest, hence putting the two of you on a level ground. Rapport building involves finding a level ground. What do I mean by a level ground? Ask the interviewee about family status. That is after you have voluntarily given him or her your information, whether you are married, how many children, without many children, without many wives, if you have many. In short, you are just giving him information about your marriage status, telling him whether you are single, married, just like that. And then you ask him or her to explain her part, whether she or he is married, with how many children, how many years in marriage, something like that, in a very relaxed manner, so that you find a common level, a common ground. Also talk about socializer activities like games, religion, and etc. What do I mean by these activities, games? Talk about Manchester, talk about Arsenal, talk about many gaming things to see whether you can find a common ground. If you find that you are a supporter of Arsenal, for example, and your interviewee is also a supporter of Arsenal, then you are like age-mate, you know, you are at the same level, you are comrades, you are colleagues. So in that kind of area, you are like equal. You are finding a level ground where the interviewee can feel that he or she is equal to you. You are not too special. Take your time. Take your time here. This is where the tone of the interview is set. Or this is where you set the tone of the interview. During the rapport building, this is where you set the tone of the interview. Success in rapport building, to a large extent, determines the success of the interview and even interrogation, as we will see in the next step of interviewing suspects. Sometimes suspects bring a lot of problems during the interviews and interrogation. Some of them may keep quiet and refuse to answer questions. What will you do? The information you gathered or the tone you said during the rapport building when you was just starting the interview is what will assist you to unlock the suspect who does not want to talk and give information. In a duration of about 15 minutes, you should switch to the interview questions abruptly. You need not tell the interviewee that we have now done enough introduction, so let us move to the interviewing proper. You just start asking the questions abruptly, so that the interviewee moves with that kind of atmosphere into the questioning stage. If you say that now we are going to the interviewing proper, it is like scaring the interviewee. So you just progress seamlessly from the introduction stage to the questioning stage. I will now talk about the commandments of interviewing. And as you know about the commandments, there are do's and don'ts. Commandments, there are those commandments who tell you what to do. There are commandments that will tell you what not to do. That is the essence, or that is the really purpose of commandments. Even when you go to the commandments of God, which He gave to His people in the Garden of Eden, He gave them the commandments, and not all were positive. Some of them were negative. Don't do, don't do, don't do. Commandments are just like that. And these are the 10 commandments. They are going to tell us what to do and what not to do during interviewing. Number 1, thou shalt create and build rapport, right? From the introductory stage of the interview. We have already discussed that. Thou shalt dress in a business suit or dress or any casual dress that will not distract or threaten the interviewee. You are not supposed to overdo your dressing when you are going to the interview room. And it is even advisable that if you are a uniformed officer, you avoid going to the interview room with the uniform. Leave them at home. They are not going to assist you. They are going to distract the interviewee and even threaten him or her, and therefore hinder the free flow of information to you. Number 3, thou shalt give the interviewer adequate time to give his side of the story. Number 3 is very critical. You must understand that during the interview, the interviewee is the one who should talk more. If he wants or she wants to talk and talk and talk and talk about the incident, just be patient and be noting what information is being divulged by the person. Give enough time, adequate time, so that he gives or she gives the full narration of the incident. Never interrupt or cut short. If time itself cuts you short, for example, it is late and you have to wind up, then the interview will be adjourned, and then the interviewee will start from where he or she stopped the following time when you have the continuation of the interview. Number 4, thou shalt give the interviewee adequate personal space during the interview. What do I mean by personal, adequate personal space? Adequate personal space. You learn that when you are especially new to a person, you are not familiar, and then you decide to move very close, the person usually feels threatened. Usually a human being has got a safe space between him and the other people around, or the objects around, especially if those objects or things or people are not familiar to him. So if you are a stranger, you are not a person who is not familiar, and then you come very close to me, I will feel threatened. I can even push you away. I can push you away because I don't know your intention. I will feel unease. That is how the interviewee will feel if you sit very, very close to him or her during interviewing. He or she will feel threatened, and therefore she will not have a free mind that will let information flow freely to you. We are going to talk about this later on, and even give specific measurements within which you should not have anything. You should not. You should not move closer than that distance. A safe distance must be kept between you and the interviewee. Number 5, thou shalt display friendly demeanor throughout the interview. Even if things are not going according to plan, even if you feel that the witness is a suspect and is lying to you, or it has become hostile, do not also become hostile. Remain calm, friendly, and let yourself be seen to be friendly throughout the interview, so that you get the maximum information from the interview. Thou shalt not disapprove the interviewee's answers to your questions openly and directly during the interview. During the interview, you might find that the witness is lying to you. Do not tell him or her that he is lying to you. Do not even shake your head in a disapproval. Do not indicate anything that will show the interviewee that you are disapproving the answers he or she is giving you. Because if you do that, then you have a problem. The interviewee will short of block, and therefore you not get the full information, whether deception or the truth. Number 7, thou shalt not imprison the interviewee. An interview should be done in an open room, or a room that is not locked. You are not supposed to imprison the interviewee. It should be voluntary meeting and a voluntary conversation. Number 8, thou shalt not proceed with interview If the interviewee requests for leave to have advice from his attorney, or to have his attorney accompany him or her to the interview room, you have to stop the interview and then give time for the interview to get the attorney into the room or get the advice and then come back to the room. Number 9, thou shalt not believe in what the interviewee is saying without verification questions. So instead of disapproving what this person is saying, in commandment number 6, you are supposed to ask follow-up questions to verify what the interviewee is telling you, and then take notes of what you have confirmed. Number 10, thou shalt not forget taking clear notes during interviews, because this is what will enable you do a report, a forensic report. When should an interview take place? It is recommended that the witness interviewing step comes immediately after extensively and intensive documentary evidence gathering, analysis, and examination. Immediately you complete the documentary evidence gathering and examination, you should sit down to carry out an interviewing, so that you fill in the gaps that you noted during that exercise of documentary evidence examination. This does not mean that no sort of interviewing will be done before the main interview, that is step 6. Some kind of questioning for clarification will be done continuously as the investigation progresses, right from the preliminary investigation step or through to the forensic external confirmation stage. The interviewing we are discussing now is a special sitting that concentrates on witnesses. This terminology sometimes confuse. The two terminologies usually confuse interview and interrogation. What is interview and what is interrogation? We have already defined interview. What is interrogation? Interrogation is a stage of interview where the interviewer is asking admission seeking questions. That is the theory that is done during interrogation stage. So interrogation is like an advanced stage of interviewing. So what are the differences between interviewing and interrogation? Number 1, interview is a controlled conversation aimed at gathering information, whereas interrogation is not a conversation, it is a monologue that involves the investigator talking down to the suspect. Number 2, interview seeks information about the incident. Interrogation seeks denial or admission. Number 3, interview is rather friendly. Interrogation is adversarial. This is where the orthodox investigators and trained investigators, especially those who were employed without proper training in professional investigation, this is where they pinch. This is where they press very hard. This is where they will even slap the suspect or the hostile witness in order to give information. It is hostile because it is adversarial, because the investigator is like saying that you are guilty of the offense under investigation. This is where the subjects of the interrogation cry. This is where they sweat very profusely and they cry. Number 4, interview is done before interrogation. Interrogation is done after interviewing. Number 5, probability of being guilty is not known or estimated. Probability of being found guilty is likely going by the weight of evidence already collected. When a person comes to interrogation, it means that the investigator has already decided that this person is most likely to be guilty, going by the weight of evidence already collected, the evidence collected from the documentary evidence examination stage and the witnesses interviewing stage. That is why the interviewing of witnesses must come first, so that we get all evidence together, bound together with the documentary evidence against the suspects. Number 6, first stage of interview. Interviewing is the first stage of interview. Interrogation is the second and the final stage of interview. Number 7, interviewing is open-ended. Is where open-ended questions are used, whereas under interrogation, closed-ended questions are used. Number 8, interviewing does not necessarily involve the police. Interrogation must involve the police. Why? When you are now seriously accusing the subject of your interrogation and pointing all evidence to him or her, she might become violent and even stand up to fight with you. So you must have protection of the police, who will be able to even at this stage arrest the person and put him under custody. It is not a joke here now, because this person has been found to be the most probable perpetrator of the crime. Number 9, interviewing is non-accusatory. The interviewer is not is just seeking information. He's not accusing anyone. But interrogation is accusatory, meaning what? The interviewer or interrogator is telling the suspect that he did it. He is the one who did it, and therefore needs to confess and give further information and even other reasons why he had to perpetrate the crime. Conducting an interview. During live interviews, the following should be in the interview room. The following should be in the interview room. These are the participants of the interview. Number one, the lead interviewer and his co-interviewer, the person who takes notes. Number two, the legal counsel representing the legal counsel representing the company. Number three, the interviewee. Number four, the legal counsel of the interviewee or her or his direct representative. The person between the interview is the lead interviewer, and the main participant is the interviewee. The rest of the people are just witnesses of the interviewing process in the room. They are not supposed to interfere with the flow of the interview. But as you know, the legal counsels, the lawyer, the advocates usually complicate things. They usually complicate things, and if you have them in the interview room and they feel that you are cornering the interviewee, their client, they might raise some objections. And these are some of the challenges you get during the interviewing or interrogation process when these people are around, and they must be around. It is the right of the interviewee to have her or his witness within the room. You are also supposed to have your witness, who is your co-interviewer, so that in the case of any framing against you, you can have someone to say, no, I was there, it did not happen like that. And the presence of all these people in the room will be like a deterrent against any mischief from the interviewee, for example. You will learn that suspects, for instance, are very mischievous. If you find yourself, the two of you with a suspect as an interviewee in the room, the interviewee may decide to play some mischief that will turn you into a suspect or a person to be investigated, instead of you investigating the suspect. And the case will turn around and the hunter will become the hunted. That is what you should avoid by having the four participants, the 4 or 5 participants I have mentioned in this slide in the room. Types of questions during interviewing. Number one is informational questions. These are questions that will enable you to get information in an non-threatening manner. Examples are, where do you think the company is wasting assets or money? Another one, where do you think the company is vulnerable to someone abusing his or her position? Next is open questions. The examples are what about, how, could it be. The open questions will lead to storytelling. It will lead to storytelling so that you get more information about what happened. Crossed questions, these are the questions that require yes or no. They are not recommended during interviewing of witnesses, but you can use them towards the end of the interview to seek clarifications like, I hope I have given you enough time to answer questions. Do you have anything more to tell me? Yes or no? Uh, these crossed questions are extensively used during interrogation, but they are discouraged and they must be avoided during during interviewing of witnesses. Number two, no, the next, reading questions. This is a continuation from the previous slide. So the numbering is wrong. You can change this one to 2 and this one to this one to, you change this one to 3 and this one to 4. You can change those ones so that you can change the first one to 3 and this one to 4. This is a continuation from the previous slide. Reading questions. These are questions that contain an answer as part of the question. They are not recommended. They are not recommended during the investigation. Example of reading questions are like, when you made the call to your boss, what did he say to you? Reading questions often are not allowed in courtroom situations, but they can be an effective technique during the interviewing process. Next. Hostile witnesses. Who is an hostile witness? An hostile witness is the one that is not supporting the cause of the interviewer. He or she is seen to be withholding information or telling half truths. This may happen when the person being investigated or investigated is her or his friend, and therefore the witness does not want to or wish to give information that may make his friend's case more worse. This type of witness should be treated as conspirator, hence be moved from the witness to the suspects list. Such should be interviewed first before other suspects, that is during suspects interrogation. Witnesses must be interviewed before suspects. This is not a fast and hard rule, but it is good interrogative practice to start with witnesses and then move to suspects and then come back later on to interview those who first were deemed to be suspects but are proved to be witnesses. Interviewing of witnesses must come first so that we use the information given by the witnesses to during the interviewing of suspects. And when some suspects turn out to be good witnesses, we will come back again to interview them as witnesses, and then wind up the interviewing process with interrogation, and that is the subject of step number 7 of the investigation, forensic investigation process. Tomorrow morning, I will continue with interviewing before we move to step 7 of the investigation process. That is the end of the lecture. Thank you very much for listening. I saw some participants online. Thank you very much for your patience. I've taken about 1 hour, and this is the standard time I do take when delivering these kind of lectures. So I've taken the maximum time that I have to take during this the delivery of my lectures. Thank you for listening. And if you have any question, yes, I can see Clinton Odhiambo. Clinton Odhiambo from Tharaka University. I found this program greatly important to me because currently I am a student of CFFE. Thank you, sir, for offering this to us, this illustrious presentation. Thank you very much, Clinton Odhiambo, for your comment. The next, the same person is saying, Clinton Odhiambo Nyango, can a practicing advocate undertake the task of certified forensic fraud examiner even without undergoing the certification or professional training? This is a very nice question. This is a very nice question from Clinton Odhiambo Nyango of the Tharaka University, if I'm not wrong. In the absence of trained experts, any quack can do investigation. Any person can purport to be able to do investigation. But if there are people who are specially trained, like CFIPs, those who are trained in the professional investigative processes, then there is no need of using a quack. I'm saying a quack because an advocate by training is not an investigator. He's a defender. He's a person who is supposed to stand in for somebody and defend him in a court of law. He's not trained in investigation. So even if he did some kind of training in investigation as one of the units during his training, road training, that does not qualify him to be a professional investigator. You will note that even accountants, CPAs, and SCCAs, and even CAS do forensic auditing. Just because they are trained in accounting and auditing, they do forensic auditing, but they are not qualified to do forensic auditing. They are not qualified investigators. That is why many of the cases that are investigated by such quacks fail when they come to a court of law, because they are not done according to the principles and practice of investigation. So if there is no qualified professional investigator, then we can do with such people. But if they are trained people, why use half-baked investigators instead of qualified people in investigation? That is my take, and I will take this. I will take an example from the medical profession, where if you go to a medical center, for example, and find that there is no doctor, but there is a clinic officer. This clinic officer is not a doctor, is not a qualified doctor, but can do something that can save life, but he cannot operate. He can do the simple procedures and even prescribe medicine for malaria to save life in the absence of a qualified medical doctor. But if there is a qualified medical doctor, this is the person who will do the diagnosis, the proper investigation, and then give proper prescription. And even if he's a surgeon, and even go ahead and carry out surgery. That is what I'm saying, that in the absence of properly trained professionals in investigation, then they have baked people can purport to be investigating. But this is why the rate of fraud cases, corruption cases is very high. The rate of them being dismissed in a court of law is very high, because if you do a short investigation, that short investigation will lead to short report, forensic report, and then when it comes to the scrutiny of the court, and it is found to be wanting, then the case will flop. The case will fail, because the courts will depend on the expert who did the investigation to explain everything and enable them to come to a reasonable judgment. If such kind of support is not adequate, then the courts usually say that due to inadequacy of evidence adduced by the prosecution, uh, the suspect is acquitted. Acquitted. They do not say that there is no evidence, but they say inadequacy of evidence, because the evidence corrected was half-baked by half-baked professionals. That is why people must train to become professional investigators. To be trained, like for example, to be trained as a policeman does not give you license to become a professional investigator. A policeman can use his powers to arrest, but not to investigate. If he is not trained in professional investigation, then he will use his force. He will use his orthodox methods of threatening here and there. And when the report comes to court of law, it is found to be wanting, and then the suspect is acquitted. That is why many of these cases flop in a court of law, because of poor and shoddy investigation done by those who are not properly qualified. I think I've answered your question. If you have another question, you can ask, but I beg that you allow us to adjourn until morning at 7 a.m. Any more question or comment before we wind up? Okay, there's no more comments and questions. I thank you all for listening, and bye-bye.